this regular meeting of the Waynesboro Planning Commission for October 17th, 2023. And Kenny, would you be so kind as to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Have all the commissioners had a chance to look over the agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Somebody want to make a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Could I?
Second.
Second. Everyone in favor of adopting the agenda?
Aye.
I have to use my hand sanitizer because my gavel's gone again. Agenda is approved. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at the minutes from the meeting held September 19th, 2023?
Yes.
Somebody want to?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as written.
Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Everyone in favor of approving the minutes from the meeting held September 19th, 2023?
Aye.
Everyone not? The minutes are approved. We now have a public comment for period for items not on the agenda. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment? It's a hot night at Planning Commission tonight. Now we have a public hearing for a zoning map amendment request by VM Acquisition, Waynesboro LLC, to rezone properties located at 1010 East Main Street, Waynesboro, Virginia, tax map numbers 56-2-2, 57-2-1, 56-1-69, lots 1, 2, 8, and 9, 57-1-70, lots 1, 2, and 7, 57-1-71, lots 1, 2, 3B, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 57-4-71-E from HB Highway Business, HI Heavy Industrial, and RG5 General Residential to MXB Mixed Business. And we have our lovely Allison here to present to us what we're going to be looking at tonight.
Good evening. This is the application to rezone 1010 East Main Street, otherwise known as Metal Crafters. This property is located over on the eastern side of the city, East Main Street, bounded by Hunter on the one side, 10th in the back. I think we all are fairly familiar with its location. It is a mix of three zonings right now. The first is highway business, and it's our commercial district that allows all commercial uses and then some light industrial ones. And it's generally meant for businesses that rely on close proximity to major transportation routes and areas that are located on arterials and highways. The second district that makes up the overall property is the heavy industrial district. It does allow for certain commercial uses along with most of the light and then all of the sort of what is categorized as heavy industrial uses. It provides the sites for major transportation terminals, manufacturing facilities that have a much larger impact on the surrounding area than industries in the lighter industrial district. And then the final zoning district for the current property is the RG5, which is our general residential district. And this district allows our medium density housing uses such as single family detached, attached, townhouses, and multiplexes, that sort of residential structure. Here is a look at the current zoning map. The RG5 portion is located on the rear of the property in this area right here, then a small portion right there, and then HB makes up the other sides, and the heavy industrial is sort of the large main building in the center there. So the applicant has requested the property be rezoned to MXB, which is our mixed business district that allows a range of commercial, industrial, and residential uses. Some of you may remember this is one of our newer districts that was created to provide a greater flexibility to those areas that have legacy industrial and then commercial structures close to residential areas. And it's meant to encourage business activity and redevelopment while trying to ensure those areas, the residential areas, stay reasonably quiet. And it should be used in the areas where an existing mixture structures and uses suggest that vibrancy and activities levels similar to that of a commercial or industrial area, such as this. A little bit of background, the building was home to the Virginia Metal Crafters until about 2006, and it was purchased by the applicants back in 2013 when they then eventually began the Phase 1 improvements, which saw Basic City Brewery opening around 2016. They got underway with the Phase 2 improvements in 2022. Some of those haven't been completed quite yet, but the building is now home to several new businesses, Hap Coffee and Roasters, Commonwealth Crush, The Foundry, and hopefully home to future businesses as well. The applicant has found that the current zoning doesn't permit all of the current uses and potential future uses that might locate in the building. And so rezoning the property to this MXB designation would give them the flexibility they need to have additional uses locate there in the future. And those future uses, according to the applicant, could include retail, food service, office uses, and then some production-oriented ones as well. Here is a quick look at the concept plan that the applicant provided to us. Walk quickly through it. You have sort of the main parking area over here on the western side of the building. You have the main facility right here. You have some parking in the rear, and then, of course, Basic City's location back here, and then some additional parking in areas as it exits out onto Hunter Street. And then also here's a quick look at some of the uses surrounding the facility. On its southern side, you do have a lot of residential. You got some single-family residential mixed in with some townhouses, multifamily residential right here. You have Union Baptist Church located off to the west. Then you have Patches Mobile Home Park across the street, along with that Sunoco right there. A mix of sort of commercial and residential as you proceed down East Main into Augusta County. So this is a look at the comprehensive plan map. Right now, most of the subject property is designated as commercial and retail, with those sort of with more medium density residential areas in the back here where that RG5 zoning is. And then across the street is more commercial retail, and then you have some of that mixed use C area right here. And then, of course, Sunset Park is up here across the tracks. And then you have some more commercial retail at the corner of Delphine and Main. Now, as far as transportation access goes, the MXB district does permit for a 50% reduction in parking requirements. And parking is one of the concerns with this site, just because of its current uses and the limited parking capacity at that particular site. So right now, the site is using a shared parking agreement with all of its uses, and what those do is it permits users to share parking according to the business type and then also when they operate. And so certain uses like Hap Coffee and Roasters, they operate more in the morning and into the afternoon, while places like the Foundry tend to operate more in the evenings, so they can share parking in that way, as an example. So with the site plan that was approved with the Phase 2 construction, there were 294 parking spaces that were going to be provided, and to help alleviate concerns about potential parking concerns with this rezoning, they have proffered that they'll maintain at least the 294 parking spaces. They won't remove any of those parking spaces. They'll keep those in place. So it is something that the applicant has proffered as part of this application. As far as utilities go, the public water and sewer are located at this location. Public Works noted during their review that, of course, capabilities aren't reserved until they have determined adequacy, and that depends on the uses and, of course, any facility fees that may need to be paid. They also recommend an investigation of the available fire flow to ensure that the city and fire code requirements can be met for any of the proposed future uses. So that would be done as those uses come in. As far as landscaping goes, separating it from, providing a buffer from the residential and the Metal Crafters property. Currently, there is a mix of some existing vegetation and then Class B and C buffers that are already in place or will be in place in the future with the completion of the Phase 2 improvements along the property's southern boundary. And another thing to note is that because those Phase 2 renovations are still wrapping themselves up, many of the new businesses that are located there are operating under temporary certificates of occupancy pending the completion of these improvements. And some of those improvements are the things like the landscaping, some of the stormwater facilities, structures, fire hydrant installation replacement, and then also paving and marking of those parking areas. The applicant has been working towards completion of those, and they also have been bonded. And so in conclusion, the East Main Street corridor is a mix of former industrial, some commercial, and then also residential properties. And this particular property is now being redeveloped into a multi-tenant, multi-use space. And the MXB district seems, it was created with these types of uses in mind for these older structures and facilities. So staff is recommending approval of this application, along with the proffer that a minimum of the 294 parking spaces on site will be provided. And that is all I have for you tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is also here tonight to answer any questions you might have as well.
What would the additional, if you exceed that 294, what do they project the overflow parking to go? Just curious. Where would they go?
So according to the concept plan that was provided, there could be the possibility in the future, if desired, for some residential uses. That would require a conditional use permit, so it's not a by right use. This zoning wouldn't allow it to happen automatically, but they'd have to come back and get a conditional use permit if they wanted to do some upper story residential. And likely, if they were to do something like that, the 294 wouldn't, because it's another discretionary act that council could approve, that they would likely be looking at some kind of like parking deck or parking specifically for potentially the residential, and then having some residential above that. But that is something that they have identified as maybe something down the road or in the future. But the 294 spaces are what are currently marked on the site. They were approved as part of a shared parking agreement where we did look at daytime and nighttime uses. And the reason that they have proffered that number is because a rezoning to MXB allows a 50% reduction in required parking. And the reason for that is because MXB is often in places where there's a lot of good pedestrian infrastructure and maybe a lot of residential nearby that can easily get to those places, so you would expect lower vehicle numbers. But staff felt like this area still, it still needed to have that parking. And so that's why they proposed to maintain the 294 that were part of that shared parking agreement.
So this is above and beyond what it would be required in MXB? I mean, this is more than would be required in MXB.
I think it would be, yeah. I haven't
Okay.
calculated all the
Right,
numbers,
but I
but
think
yes,
it would
this
be.
is a 50% reduction. Or MXB allows a 50%
50%
reduction.
reduction.
But they would be maintaining what was approved currently with the site plan
Okay.
under a shared parking agreement. And the shared parking agreement was signed onto by all tenants within the building, so that everybody was aware that, the parking lot is shared and you have certain spots for daytime and evening uses, essentially.
Okay,
But-
so when you say 294, is that the specific area to the right, or is that the entire?
No, so the 294, can you go back to the concept plan? So the 294 are what is marked and approved with the current site plan. That does include existing parking in the front of Basic City. I mean, so that is all parking on the site.
The 294?
Yes.
So we know the MXB allows a 50% reduction, and we know this is more than the 50%.
what would the normal parking be? Yeah, just a ballpark.
So without it being zoned MXB, the way it's currently zoned, I can't remember with that shared parking agreement if it was upwards like closer to 400, like if we weren't allowing any shared. So if we weren't saying some things are daytime uses, sometimes are evening uses, if we were just looking at numbers required per what that use is, I can't remember if it's close to 400 or I believe it was. And so the 294 was what we got to with a shared parking agreement.
Okay.
And so that identifies, you're either allowed to do it by use types or by day, nighttime uses, and not double count, so not both. And so we worked with the developer to kind of essentially assign what would be considered daytime and what activities would be considered nighttime. And that parking analysis is approved and part of the site plan. So it's a public document that, all tenants are aware of as far as the development's concerned.
Any other questions, commissioners? Thanks, Alisand. Do we have any questions for the applicant or anything? Okay, so we can open the public hearing. Do I have to read all these numbers again?
No.
Okay, we're going to open the public hearing for the zoning map amendment requested by VM Acquisition Waynesboro LLC with all the numbers I previously read. So I'd like to open the public hearing. Anyone want to talk? Okay.
So typically, I don't know if the applicant wishes to speak. Typically, you would be able to address the commission now if you would like to about the request. Okay, yeah, that's typically, and then we'll have
Sorry,
anybody who's wishing to speak.
sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't, you're fine.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mike Hendrickson, and I'm the developer working with the capital partner owner of the property to take it from what it was to what it is now to hopefully what we see all as the vision for it once completed. And really the main reason why we're trying to do this, at this point is we've had interest from a lot of different types of businesses, especially in that sawtooth section, which is a part of the industrial zoning. And those right now, the way that it sits, would not be able to kind of stand alone without some type of production use and their other use being some type of ancillary use. And so for that reason, we would love to be able to have restaurants, other retailers, and office tenants in the building. One, they can play off of different things that are happening there, and it can be more of a community overall and not just a production facility as it once was. So that is our main reason, for being here. And as far as the parking goes, I think there was actually a number somewhere in the 260-something originally, but we actually reworked the site plan and added another 30-something spaces to get to that 294 number. And as I mentioned before, we have all the tenants that have signed off, and they understand exactly what that means at the time of signing their lease. So there's no big surprises to them at all when we say, hey, listen, there's daytime and there's nighttime, uses, and we all talk about their hours of operation, all that kind of thing. So, any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, a quick question on Basic City Brewery. They've got that parking right in front.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that's closed off when they have bands and this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that parking included in the 294?
It is not included in the 294.
Okay.
So we specifically removed that
Okay.
from our count to make sure that actual usable spaces are the ones that are being
Yeah,
counted.
and I'm not seeing in the diagram, so I was
Yeah,
saying
we
that's
we
fine.
we, we
Yeah.
took those out,
Okay.
yes, sir. Yep.
Excuse me, I see that they're not, and maybe it's just the resolution of the map, I'm trying to look at it. Are you counting the little existing parking area down there on Hunter as part of the 296? I just don't see the lines and the islands.
Yes, that actually exits 200?
Yeah.
Yes, that
That's
is a part of the count.
That is part.
Yes, that is part of the count, correct. Yeah, everything within the 9.5 or so acres that is marked as a part of the 294. Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Next. Please state your name and address.
Hashim Halstead at 1625 Edge Hill. Hi, guys. I'm very in favor of the move to MXB for cutting that in half. I think it just makes a lot of sense. As some of you guys know, I'm kind of a nerd. So lately I've been reading through this book. I'm about 50% of the way through The High Cost of Free Parking by Donald Shoup. And he makes a lot of good points. I think it's a book that everybody here should at least rummage through and research a little bit. And it just says essentially that we end up building too much parking for what the use case is, and that costs everybody a lot. It costs us, the city, a lot for so many reasons. I'm not even going to get into that. But essentially, if you've ever driven down there on any given night, you can usually find a parking spot. Up to this point, I've been there a bunch of times. They actually started the same year that I moved here. So I've been there plenty. I actually bike there pretty often, especially over the summer. And I'm like, there's always parking. This is nice. This is great. So I can't imagine that adding a few more things will completely destroy the infrastructure in that, 9-acre lot. And obviously, to build more, they have to come back here and talk with you guys anyway. You might be like, well, you're going to need a conditional use permit for that. Like, you guys still have options. I believe it. So I definitely believe moving to MXB and giving them a few more options as a business would be really good for us, because they've already been so good for us. So I think giving them more freedom is a good choice.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have any comments? Any email or anything comments? No. Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, what do we think?
I think it's a good idea. I live on the east side of town.
Having been in this committee position forever and having worked on both the comprehensive plan and this MXB zoning, this is exactly what we did it for.
Yep.
So,
Move to approve?
Seconded.
everybody in favor of zoning map amendment request by VM Acquisition for the stated property from all of those other ones to MXB, say aye.
Aye.
Everyone not? Motion carries. And we are on to another public hearing for a preliminary plat request by D.R. Horton, agent for Rose and Gray LLC, owner for an 82-lot residential subdivision on 12.181 acres located at 0 Rosser Avenue, Waynesboro, Virginia, tax map number 42-12-7. And we have our lovely Alisand again.
Yes, so this is a preliminary major subdivision plat for parcel on Rosser Avenue. This is located more on the western side of the city, on Rosser, just up from Northgate, the Northgate intersection, and next to the rehab facility. So this property is 12.181 acres. It is currently undeveloped and heavily wooded. It is zoned currently for RG5, and the comprehensive plan has it designated as low-density residential. Some of the surrounding uses include probably the majority single-family residential on its sort of eastern and southern boundaries, and you have the River's Edge Rehab Facility here, and then it also borders with the Creekwood subdivision on its northern boundary there. So this property is currently zoned for RG5, which is our general residential district. It permits for a range of the medium-density housing types, and this includes the single-family detached, two-family homes, such as duplexes, townhomes, and also multiplexes. And this particular application is for townhouse development, and townhouses are permitted in the RG5 district at a density of 8 units per acre, and on a minimum lot size of 2,000 square feet. Here's a quick look at the zoning map. Most of the surrounding property is zoned RS12, sort of wraps around, and then you have some RG5 and RMF in the Creekwood subdivision on its north, and then of course some highway business designated areas, the Martins, further to the south. So this is, as I said, a major subdivision preliminary plat. It is by right with no waivers. Therefore, there's no city discretion to deny it as long as the applicant satisfies the requirements of the ordinance. The proposal is for 80 townhouse units. The lot sizes range from about 2,000 square feet to 5,300 square feet. And that works out to about 6.6 units per acre. The plat also includes about 2.724 acres of open space. Some of that is doubling as stormwater management areas. And there's also about 2.151 acres of landscape buffer, and most of this will be existing vegetation. There's also 1.821 acres of public right-of-way, streets, and then 0.604 acres of private right-of-way, which is mostly parking areas for the residents. So here's a look at the overall plat. The main entrance is down here on Rosser Avenue, and it has a main road that goes up and through down to a turnaround, also fronting on Rosser down here, and then up to a interparcel connection with Creekwood down the line on the northern side. A little bit of closer look. Again, here's that main entrance off of Rosser. There will be a right turn lane into the development from Rosser. And here's one of those small parking areas. You have a couple more of those mixed in with the development. And then finally, this shows that interparcel connection with Creekwood right there. So as far as that vegetative buffer goes, a Class B buffer is required on those eastern-western boundaries with the RS-12 zoned areas where the rehab center is and the existing residential. Much of the eastern boundary actually follows close by Pratt's Run, is therefore mostly in floodplain, and the applicant has indicated that most of that vegetation will remain, and at least 15 feet of that vegetation will remain along that boundary with that subdivision to make up that required buffered area. So that denser vegetation will stay both in the floodplain and also around the boundary to provide a nice buffer between the two developments. They also indicated they do plan to leave in place the existing vegetation that runs along the southern boundary, rather than clear that all out and plant a brand new buffer. So again, a nice buffer between that rehab center property and the current development. As far as access goes, this property will be accessed from Rosser Avenue, and they will provide an interparcel connection to the Creekwood subdivision. Sidewalks will be provided throughout the development and then along that Rosser Avenue frontage as well. A turn lane and warrant analysis was conducted, and it didn't recommend any improvements. However, the applicant has indicated that they will provide a left turn lane, and they may also provide a right turn taper. VDOT's review strongly encouraged the left turn lane be provided into the development. And then they also recommended that a right turn lane, or at least the right turn taper, be included as well because of future development anticipated in the Creekwood area and to the north, and the fact that only 10 more trips would trigger that right turn taper. So the applicant is considering that as well. And then here again is just another look at the overall plat. Here's that left turn lane into the development off of Rosser, that main entrance there, and then also appears that interparcel connection. And you can't really see it too well, but there are sidewalks shown along the Rosser frontage and then also throughout the development. So as far as parking goes, townhouse communities are always a little bit tight, and 2 spaces per townhouse unit is required. And so for this development, 160 spaces are required for it. These townhomes are anticipated to have single car garages, and those can count as 1 space. But the second space has to be provided elsewhere, and it cannot be provided between the townhouse unit and the street. So what the applicant has done is put these extra 80 spaces into small 18-space parking areas that are spread throughout the division that provide the rest of the spaces. And no on-street parking will be permitted with this development, primarily because the streets will be a little narrower. And the fire department does require that 20-foot clear lane to get their fire apparatus through. So there will be no on-street parking permitted in this neighborhood. So public water and sewer are available at the site, and the location of those utilities and the stormwater infrastructure will all be determined during the public improvement plan process They'll be reviewed and approved at that time. As far as schools go, this will be located within the Westwood Hills Elementary School District. And the development could certainly see an increase in the number of students that are attending the city schools. Right now, there is no concern with the capacity of the city schools. According to Dr. Castle with Waynesboro City Schools, Westwood Hills in particular, that elementary school, had 384 students enrolled as of September 2022, with their a maximum capacity of 564 units. And in addition, developments such as these townhouse developments, these single-family attached developments, tend not to generate as many children as a single-family detached. They seem to generate about half, according to some research conducted using the American Community Survey from 2015. So generally, they do seem to produce less children, so it would have less of an impact on city schools than a single-family detached. So the applicant has appears to have met the minimum standards for both the subdivision and zoning ordinances, and therefore staff is recommending approval of the subdivision application. And that is all I have. The applicant is also here tonight. If you have any questions for them, I'm also happy to answer any questions.
In regards to the turn lanes, they're almost required right now. But if the new development comes in, will they be required to redo them at that point, or is the impetus to do it now instead of later? Does that make sense? Like, where they strongly recommend a left-hand turn lane, but they don't necessarily require a left-hand turn lane.
Right.
But when the next division comes, it'll be required. Will that next division be responsible for putting in that turn lane?
Yeah, so I think it is a little bit difficult when it's a by right development that has specific entitlements with it and off-site improvements. So I don't know if there's a definitive answer in that regard. Certainly, this applicant has said they will do the left turn lane. The right turn lane is what VDOT is also encouraging, but at a minimum, the taper, and the reason for that is because they said that the taper would be required with just 10 more trips. And so if it was a rezoning request and we were changing the entitlements and allowing for an increase in zoning, then we would be looking at, impacts and off-site improvements. But the analysis showing that it is not required, it's more difficult for the city to require off-site improvements that are not triggered by the current development.
Of course, and I'm glad to hear that you guys are planning on the left-hand turn lane. But was it Cottonwood or?
It's Creekwood.
When Creekwood comes along, are they going to have to put in the right-hand turn lane?
So Creekwood has, it's an approved preliminary plat. So unless any of those developments were coming back for additional entitlements, if they were coming back to increase density or to change those requirements, then no, there would be no provision for the city to require that.
Fortunate. Thank you.
So are we looking at two stoplights within 100 yards of each other? Because there's one at Northgate, and it's about 100 yards up the road to where this one you
So
would turn.
with this development, there's no proposed traffic lights.
But if they put a left turn lane in off of Rosser, you gonna have to have one, don't you gonna have an accident?
No, there's no proposed traffic light.
It'll just be a cutout in the median.
Yeah, but it's a lot of traffic on Rosser at certain times of the day. People could be sitting there 10, 15 minutes waiting to make a left-hand turn.
So they submitted a turn lane warrant analysis, and actually a left turn lane is not required based on that analysis, but VDOT encourages it, and the applicant has said they will construct the left turn lane, but there is no proposed traffic light.
Okay, at this time.
Yes, based on this development and this review and VDOT's review and the analysis provided by the engineer, there was no discussion about any warrants or triggers for anything related to a traffic signal.
Okay.
On this, the left turn lane, you have a left turn lane there for Northgate. Is there plenty of room to put a separate left turn lane in for this new division and not have any confusion there? Because I know you can't let them run into each other.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the actual design and engineering of that would happen with the public improvement plan and specifics, but there's been no indication to this point that there isn't enough room for that.
Okay, and on the parking, I know there's 5 separate lots there with 18 parking spots per lot. And there's a minimum requirement of 2 spots per unit. On that, the group of units closest to Rosser, there's 27 units there, and there's one 18 spot lot there. Is there going to be an issue with people trying to sneak parking their car in front, or
So-
they don't want to walk around the corner?
Yeah, so our ordinance does require 2 spaces per unit. It does not allow the driveway space in front of the single-car garage to count as one of those spots.
Okay.
And so that's a way of, I'm not exactly sure why that is in our ordinance, but it has provided a way of us having some guest percentage parking within these very dense developments. So one space is going to be in the garage, and then what's not even being counted in that number is then the spot in front of the garage, the driveway spot. And so really, those will be kind of, for people that have, more cars than, and/or guest percentages. So it's still each unit will still have a single-car garage and a driveway space, separate from those kind of communal parking areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
One thing I noticed, and I know we had this discussion with the last development, I noticed there's no, and maybe I'm just missing it in the site plan, but there's no provision for sidewalk on the public roadway. I thought when we looked at that the last time.
There is, it's hard to see.
It's hard to see,
very
but it is.
hard
They're
to
on
see.
Rosser.
There is.
There
on
is.
Yeah,
Rosser.
it's on Rosser.
Yeah, sidewalk along their entire frontage on Rosser and throughout the
And
development.
I know there's nothing on either side of them, and there's nothing we can do
Yes.
about that,
Yes.
but maybe someday there will be. And we'll all be glad this happened now.
Thank you, Alisand. So I'd like to open the public hearing for a preliminary plat request by D.R. Horton, agent for Rose and Gray LLC, owner for an 80 or 82? 80, right? My paper says 82, but it's 80?
Yeah, it's 80.
It's 80? It's 80? 80 lot residential subdivision on 12.181 acres located at 0 Rosser Avenue, Waynesboro, Virginia, tax map number 42-12-7. And I would like to invite the applicant to approach the podium if you have anything to say that we haven't heard.
I'm certainly welcome to, so I'm the engineer of record
Okay,
for D.R. Horton, and Dylan's also here with D.R. Horton. So.
okay.
Yeah, everything.
Would you mind giving us your name, sir?
Oh, sorry, I'm Jeremy Fox,
Okay,
Timmons Group. Everything we've stated tonight is by right. And I don't know if you all are familiar with the Hopeman project that went on Hopeman Parkway, but the sidewalk, the frontage, a lot of that, we kind of incorporated into this knowing that that was going to be required. I think it makes a lot of sense given, its proximity to Martin's and everything. And there obviously is inventory that needs to be taken into account for. And, I think they're willing to come in here and do whatever it takes, especially, I know the vegetation was a big thing for people.
right,
We're retaining a lot of vegetation,
excellent.
trying to create that buffer to not make it feel like, there's single families right against townhomes, right against the, I guess it's a senior facility right beside it. So I know doing our due diligence, the senior facility folks were a little concerned about thinking it had to deal with their property, but we're proposing to tie into public sewer, public water. We got demands being met. We're running hydraulic analysis right now, so we'll have a lot of that forthcoming. But happy to answer any questions you all
Any
might have.
questions for the engineer of record? I think we're good. Thank you very much. Anyone else like to approach the podium?
We did receive a comment from someone who was unable to attend that I'll read into the record. I'll just read it. My name is Phil Lemon, and my wife and I live on an adjoining property to the Rose and Gray LLC preliminary plat request for tax map number 42-12-7. Sorry, I am unable to attend in person, but thanks for the opportunity to share comments in writing. We have one primary concern and two secondary concerns. Our primary concern is stormwater impact on Pratt's Run. We've lived here since January of 2013 and have seen Pratt's Run out of its banks at least 3 times. One of those times it came to within 25 yards of our house and our neighbor's house, with the already approved 31 lots to the northwest of us, and now the 82 lot, which I think again is just back to that typo, lot plat request. We would hope that the city of Waynesboro will do some study on the environmental impact and make a stormwater management plan that will consider our neighborhood. We are concerned about the additional possibility of flooding. A secondary concern is the route the sewage lines will take. We would hope that the Pratt's Run sewer line that runs through our yard would not be used for these units. Our houses sit at some of the lowest points on this line, and if the line would ever back up, we would be first to see the effects. Besides, we question whether running sewer lines under Pratt's Run is environmentally wise. Our other secondary concern is the number of units that are being considered. The impact to traffic on Rosser Avenue will increase considerably in our neighborhood, with impact extended to the 64 interstate and beyond. We would request the city decrease the number of units. Thank you for considering our requests. Phil Lemon at 2331 Davis Road, Waynesboro. And that's the only comments that were asked to be read into the record.
Okay, thank you. So I think I can close this public hearing. What do you guys think?
I mean, it's by right.
It's about right. I think it's one of those things like it's illegal to vote no, right?
Well, it seems like they have, it seems like they have, they're willing to go above and beyond. So
Yeah.
it seems appropriate. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the preliminary plat request by EHR Horton, agent for Rose and Gray LLC owner, for the 80-lot residential subdivision on 12.181 acres located at 0 Rosser Avenue, Waynesboro, Virginia. Tax map number 42-12-7.
Do I have a second? Somebody want a second for me?
Oh, I made the motion.
Oh, I thought you made a motion,
I
sorry.
did make a motion. I can't second.
I know, somebody else needs to, I can't either, I don't think.
Second.
Thank you. Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Everyone not?
No.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Okay, so now we are on to number 7, more discussion of the zoning text amendment for vape and smoke shops. Has everyone had a chance to catch up on this information?
Yeah, so I wanted to provide a brief update on some of the items that staff has worked on since we last discussed. But then I also wanted to let the commission know that we have kind of run some of the draft kind of preliminarily by legal counsel, and they have a few items of consideration. I don't know if they're definitive things that they would like to see, but they do have some things for us to consider, and staff needs some time to catch up with them and finalize those things.
Okay,
So I'm happy to, we could get instead of just wait until we finalize that discussion with legal counsel and bring back to you some of those specific concerns they may have, then we could do that.
I don't know what you guys think. I'm good with discussing it all at once. I feel like we've discussed it a little bit at a time a lot, and I'm good with tabling it until you have the newest information.
Yes, and I think, again, there things are more suggestions or other ways that we might look at it. And so we just need to it was kind of an email exchange, touch base with them and get a little bit more definitive direction and then bring that back to you.
Excellent. I appreciate all your effort on that.
So I have a question related to this issue, and I don't want to, I know we're tabling the discussion, but I just want to bring this up so that maybe legal counsel can address it. One of the things that I took an opportunity to do is review 15.2 of the Title 15.2 of the Code of Virginia, which is the code, the title that provides for our statutory authority as planning commissions. And I don't see in there where we have the statutory authority to recommend a zoning text amendment or an ordinance without direction to do so, to consider an issue by either the governing body, which I take to mean city council, or they use two different terms, but I want to make sure we have the statutory authority to do this as well. Because this is not an issue that was directed to our attention by city council. And so I'm not sure we have the statutory authority of our own volition take up a matter like this. And I want to make sure that we comport with the Code of Virginia.
Well said.
Yeah, I've always been under the understanding that planning commissions can initiate zoning text amendments, but I could be wrong. So I also will check on that.
I'm sure that I just couldn't, I read 15.2, it's
Very
dense.
yes.
And and I just couldn't find anything in there that says we have the authority to take
Yes,
this matter up.
we'll make
I'm
sure.
sure there's a provision that provides for it, but I read the code, so I might as well ask the question.
Yes, we will make
you,
sure when we touch base with them that we'll also bring that up. I've made a note.
I got some comments that might be interesting. I just had the opportunity to talk with school staff, not in a formal way, but with Dr. Castle and a few other people at Waynesboro High School working on another project. And they said the real problem was they knew which shop. I was surprised to find out that they knew which shops were selling to minors, and it was a problem. And then when they're going in there and buying their cigars, they're seeing it happen, and those are the students. And also they said that the big problem that they can't fix is the entrepreneurs that are in school and bringing it directly into the school. And they say that's really the bigger issue than the vape shops. And it wasn't a formal conversation by any means. I'm certainly not speaking for the public officials that are working there, but I just want to let everybody know that's what I heard, and from somebody that I thought knew what they were talking about.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we are on to number 8, review of minor subdivision and final subdivision plats approved since the September 19th, 2023 meeting.
I actually don't have any of those for you this evening.
Excellent.
Okay.
Any other matters from staff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I did have something from staff. We do not have any specific requests from citizens that, I think I'm speaking correctly, that would require any kind of November meeting, which would be the week of Thanksgiving. But we could do some text amendments that staff has kind of been looking at. So I just bring it up to see, kind of get a feel for who may be available that week to come to a meeting, and if we'd have a quorum or not. It would be the Tuesday of the Thanksgiving week.
I'm available.
I'll be here.
I can't speak for nobody else, but I'm available.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll plan to do that, and it would likely be some kind of ordinance discussions. I'm not exactly sure. We still kind of have to touch base on whether if it's more of like a work session type for us to review those. But we'll plan to do that at that meeting.
Okay. And I have some Commissioners' correspondence dated October 17th, 2023. Fellow commissioners and staff, my family and I will be moving outside of town limits sometime this December. I've enjoyed my time serving as planning commissioner and wish you the best. My last meeting will probably be November, but there's a good chance I'll be around in December if you need a quorum for something. After the December meeting, you have my resignation. Regards, W. Lowry Tucker IV.
I'm out. I probably will not be at the November meeting.
Well, we will miss you, and we thank you for your service.
Yes, thank
No
you
problem.
very
Thank
much,
you.
Larry.
I had a good time.
Thank you. And anything else from anyone? Come on, approach the podium.
Again, Hashim Halstead at 1625 Edgehill.
We know who you are.
So on item number 7, just had a couple thoughts just from a statistical pragmatic aspect of the entire angle. Pragmatically, I'm not sure if this will function properly due to the things you're talking about. I know personally of a situation that happened in one of our elementary schools earlier this year.
Right.
And most of our elementary schools are deep inside of the residential district, and this one was. So I'm not quite sure if this type of amendment would change that behavior, unfortunately. If it's happening even at that level, it's a societal choice. But then with that as well, statistics, I was really looking into, I was like, man, what are the death rates on this vaping thing as we know of? And as I dug deep, I could only find this number over and over again. You'll probably find the same thing. 68 deaths in 2020 in America. That's where it's at. Where last year we had 1,005 vehicle fatalities in Virginia. And statistically, 15% of those are usually children. And also, just for the state of Virginia, 171 were pedestrian fatalities, and then 11 were bicycle fatalities. So from that, so around 10-20% of that is just pedestrians. And then you have the 2-3% that's alcohol. 20-30% that's alcohol related. And it's like, wow. And then obviously seatbelt related ones. Those are the bigger, let's say upper 50%. But I feel like since we are a small town with a limited budget, it might make sense for us to reallocate our staff resources and even your time to things that statistically make a larger impact for us as a society. But yeah, if that will work, if this rezoning actually fixes the problem, I would love that. But I just don't see the numbers that make that, I guess, probable, if you will. So yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we are done.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Everyone in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Everyone who wants to keep on? We're done.